Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. So now I have started the recording. So as you have seen from the message that we're going to discuss about what I'll call as effective study techniques. So I'll name them as effective study techniques. We'll not just see note making, probably we'll see more than that. So again, I would love to get started with questions. So any of you, if you have a question, just raise your hand and then we'll get going. Yes, Fahad, I think you had a good question. Maybe you can now utter that question. Yes, Fahad.
Yes. So I had a question that, as you said in your previous lectures, our brain is not made for memorizing stuff, but it is about memorizing patterns, identifying patterns. So I wanted to ask, like, how should I make my notes so that I am able to note down all the patterns which I have recognized and not just write everything, because it becomes a really tedious task to make notes then.
How to make notes so as to find patterns. So I'll write this. Okay, any other questions? Okay, what are questions, Jula? I'll keep on writing this. Muzaffar, yes, you have a question. Yes, yes, Muzaffar.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
Walaikum assalam warahmatullah.
सर, जैसे मैं नोट्स, जैसे मैं कोई लेक्चर देख रहा हूँ तो फिर मैं नोट्स मतलब लिख रहा हूँ कि क्या क्या है। तो जो ही मैं जब लेक्चर देखता हूँ तो
Okay,
मैं सारे नोट्स लिखता हूँ, जो भी वो एक्सप्लेनेशन देता है, चाहे वो सिंपल होगी या लॉन्ग होगी, क्योंकि मेरे दिमाग में एक वो रहता है कि बाद में अगर मैं ये नहीं लिखूंगा तो मैं भूल जाऊंगा। मैं सारा मतलब ए टू जेड
okay,
लिखता हूँ,
okay,
लेकिन बाद में क्या होता है फिर मैं वो कॉपी देखता ही नहीं हूँ।
okay, I
So how
see.
to make वो मतलब
Yes, yes, yes. So let me get started. So if in that discussion your question is not answered, do tell me, and I'll also ask you if your question is answered or not. So let's study. Let's first see what are the effective study techniques. So what I'll do is
By the
I'll
way, Muzaffar ने मेरा क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I'll probably I'll start from the scratch
घर घर
and
की कहानी।
I'll start from the scratch. And if you feel that your question was not answered, just do raise a hand again. And in between also do interrupt me whenever you want to interrupt me. Because again, just a primer, all these techniques are have scientific basis and they have been tested on people. So probably references, if you want, it will give in the description or it will be sent to you personally. So there are a lot of references for this also. So all these things have scientific backing. So you can probably trust these resources. So in order to understand the effective ways of learning, we must see how our brain processes the information. If we sort of get the hang of that thing, then probably we'll be in a better position. So the first thing I'll tackle is, please keep your focus here. I'll be tackling how the brain process processes and retains information. So disclaimer alert, I am no biologist. I'll make a very simplified explanation of this. It's very simplified. Don't quote me on this anywhere. So this is very simplified. So first we'll see how our brain processes and retains information, because if we have that, then we'll see, okay, what things to leverage about the brain so that we can get maximum out of the learning. If I write in steps, so step one will be perception. So perception. So what perception is that you have these sensory inputs, because we have been talking about machine learning and this stuff, and I told you everything is data. So humans also, if you see humans, we have these sensory things. So what we do basically, information enters brain through that. So let's say it can be sight, it can be sound, it can be touch. Okay, that is the first step. So you have to get the information from outside. So the step one is that you get it from the perception. It may be sensory input, or it may be probably, let's suppose, some sight. It may be sound. It may be some other thing. Okay. So what brain does is, that's called a selective attention. Selective attention. Maybe these details will be boring, but I'll try to keep them as simple as possible. So what brain does is it filters the relevant information and selects only the information that it needs. Okay, let me give you an example by this. Let's suppose you are studying a book, and then there is a lot of noise outside also. Okay, and there are a lot of things outside. So if you are a trained reader, so you will probably filter out all those other stimuli. So whatever happens in the atmosphere, that probably you will, once you start reading the book, and you won't attend to those things. So what we have to do is, so our brain somehow does this selective attention. And also, let's suppose you are watching a movie in somewhere, okay, and probably there is a lot of things happening around you, but your focus is not on that. Why? Because what your brain does is it does the selective attention. It only selects the parts which it wants to attend to, and this selective attention, it can be trained. So this thing can be trained. Because right now what happens is, let's suppose I have my device in my room, so some notification or something will come and I'm studying something, so my brain will register something in that key, something is happening on the phone, but I should be good enough to sort of navigate through that, and I should train my brain in order to tell it, oh, you don't need to attend that information. Okay, that is one of the problems we have. How do we get distracted so easily? Because of this, because we have not trained our brain to have this selective attention really nicely. We do have, but we don't basically see that quite often कि हम लोग selective attention पे focus कर रहे हैं. The thing is, if I am studying something, if some other thing is happening, probably we'll attend to the other thing. So it happens. So this is the first step. So step one is perception. You get an information. So in this we learned one step. So we should somehow master this thing. We should master selective attention. Okay, if we want to attend on the thing, and we should ignore whatever is happening outside, we should be training it, and we'll also learn how to train that thing. So that's the first thing. The step two is what happens in the brain. Step two is that encoding happens. Okay, step two, encoding. So what is this encoding? So now the information came, so there should be a representation in our brains. So the brain converts the sensory information into some format it can understand. Okay, that's what brain does. So there are different types of I'll say sectors in the brain, like visual, auditory, spatial. Depending on whatever we see, brain has a certain representation. Okay, that's what brain does. It represents things. So why am I telling you the encoding also? Probably once we learn about these things, so you will be effectively taking in information. Okay, then step three. So step three is short-term memory, STM. It's called STM. So what is short-term memory? So we have this temporary storage. So information is held for a very short term, for a very brief period of time. It may be ranging from few seconds to few minutes. Let's suppose some OTP came on your phone. Okay, you just see it and then you memorize it fastly. 23467 23467, and you entered it. After 1-2 minutes, this memory will be somewhat flushed out. Okay, that's what short-term memory does. Okay, this short-term memory, it can hold information typically like in chunks basically. So we store information in chunks. So chunks basically 7 plus minus 2 chunks. I'll write it. So what are these chunks is? So let's suppose if you have to read OTP 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, something like this. So you basically chunk this information. So what you do is usually sometimes you chunk it like 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, you remember it. Otherwise you chunk it like this 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. And good chunking is this. So 7 plus minus 2. So if you keep a chunk which is in this range, for some people they can remember up to 9 digits, or they can remember up to 9 chunks. For some people it may be less, they can remember only up to 5 chunks. So it depends on you. So short-term memory basically chunks out this. Okay, so it holds for a limited amount of information and it chunks that information. And then what we do is we basically forget this. Okay, either if we rehearse it, then probably it will go into what's called as long-term memory. But if we do not, if it does not get transferred into the long-term memory, it is forgotten. Okay. So we have a question. Just let me pause here for a sec, and yes, I would like to take a question here. Yes, Majid has a question. So I did not only hear the audio. Actually, is everybody able to see the screen?
Yes,
Yes.
able to.
Yes, everyone is able to see the screen. Probably there is some problem with the device. You can try to rejoin.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So what I said is now we have this step 3 where this short-term memory takes over. So it stores the information temporarily, and it ranges from seconds to minutes. What I said is it has limited capacity. Okay, I'll also write that it has limited capacity. Limited capacity. So what I mean by that, it can store only 7 plus minus 2 chunks of information. Okay, if you have to, let's suppose I call this number 1 chunk. Okay, usually OTP comes, you either some people just memorize it as a whole. Some people memorize it in 1 chunk or 2 chunks or 3 chunks. And then third step in this is like it's if you rehearse this thing enough, then it will go into long-term memory. Otherwise, you'll forget it. Okay, so it will go into long-term or forget. Okay, that's what happens in the short term. So now we'll see how does how do we transfer this short term, whatever we learned in short term and whatever this short term memory holds, how does it get transferred into the long term? So this is called as consolidation. This is step 4. If it is not forgotten, so what will happen is that's called as consolidation. So consolidation basically is this transfer of this short-term memory into long-term. So information moves from short-term to long-term memory through reception, practice, and emotional significance. Okay, and there are a lot of neural changes that do happen. Okay, it may involve strengthening of neurons and forming new connections to store this information. Okay, because our information is stored basically in neurons, in electric signals. If you see, we basically are nothing but probably an electronic device, a regular electric or electronic device. So our information is stored in neurons. So once you have this information that was in your short term, once it goes to long term, what happens basically is it strengthens those connections. So let's suppose some neuron is like this. I'll just make a rough neuron. So let's suppose neuron is like this. If your information was getting stored in the form of electrical signals, okay, and if it was in the short term memory, it usually what will happen is it will get lost. But if you rehearse it enough, or if you attach some emotional thing to it, or if there are different things which do happen, and what will happen is these connections become stronger. So connections become stronger. Okay, when connections become stronger, so you this information is basically turned to this long-term memory. So and maybe sometimes neural change also happen. By neural change, I mean that neurons can take different forms. Okay, and because this is new information and that pathway has not been formed yet. Okay, that's the long term. So what is this long term memories? It is extensive storage. So information is stored in long term, which vast in capacity. So basically it has more capacity. Also duration of that is more. It can span from hours to lifetime. So sometimes you remember an information for a couple of hours also, and for sometimes you remember information for lifetime. So for hours, I'll give you an example. If you have a food yesterday something, so you probably will remember it till 2-3 days. After 2-3 days, you cannot go back. It's very difficult to remember, oh, what have I eaten, what did I eat after before, let's suppose 4-5 days. Okay, so this is long-term memory, and the last step is retrieval. I'll write it as step 5. So step 5 is retrieval. How do you access this? Okay, so information is retrieved from this long-term memory through what's called as recall or recognition. So it's called as recall or recognition. Recognition. And strengthening of connection happens if you recall it more, or if you recognize it more, the connections of neurons become stronger, and then the information is stored for way more longer time. Okay, this was just a simplistic view how our brain works. So why did I want you to tell you this? Because there are so many things from it to take. Why do we learn the way we should learn? Okay, the first thing I said is here if you see this perception. Okay, so here we learned selective attention. So we should be somehow attentive. We should learn to ignore the other things. If we are focusing on a task, we should train ourselves so that we can ignore other things. Okay, and how to ignore those? Probably if you are thinking that your brain attends to these notifications of the phone, or maybe somebody calls you, it's good to plug your ears, and then you can stop the sensation. Okay, numb your senses, I'll call it. Numb your senses. So let's suppose you are reading something. Probably there you don't need this auditory sense. You don't need ears. So what you can do is you can plug your ears, so that whatever other stimulus that you might get from ears, so it's better you have plugged them, because now perception is because you take information. So if you are reading something only and your eyes and probably your thinking is getting involved, so it is better to plug these ears. And what you can do is you can also be in a comfortable position so that your senses don't get disturbed. Let's suppose if you are sitting on an uncomfortable chair and your senses are continuously telling you, no, get comfortable, get comfortable. So you're also registering your brain onto that. So it is better to have a comfortable position. Okay, and it is also better to have a good room. Why? What it does to brain? Because it does the selective attention for you. If you are studying in, let's suppose, an environment where it's all the chaos and there is so much of probably dust here and there, and your brain will continue to register that you are not in the safe place. You are not in the safe place, and your brain registers a lot of stuff. So it is better. So what I said is the first thing is, if you are not using your ears, probably you should plug your ears so that you cut down that audio part. And second thing is, if you are sitting in a place which is not comfortable, make yourself comfortable before doing a task which you want to achieve. And the third thing I said is, make sure that your senses, the skin touch, it is touching the books, or it is probably, if you are typing something, it's touching the laptop, it's not touching some other thing. Okay, if it does so what will happen? So it will register some other information, so that this selective attention won't work properly. So that's the first step. This encoding is not much of a thing for us, but still what we have is, here you have visual, auditory, and special things. So it is better if you can somehow combine these things all. Okay, let's suppose you are seeing an OTP. So as I said, there is visual memory also. You don't have just because there are different parts in the brain. It stores different parts in different things. So if you have an OTP 123406, so usually do experiment this on yourself. So 123, you keep on repeating this 123 123, and then just close your eyes and see this part with the visual memory. 406 will be registered in your visual memory, and 123 you can utter it out continuously, and then you will see that you even don't need to utter it. If you see 123 and 406 will somehow remain in your brain if you close your eyes, because you have seen this picture once. So if you see this picture, just try to probably remember chunk the information. If you chunk the information 123, you can utter out 123 123. But this 406 probably it will go in the visual thing wherever we have these visual things. Okay, or maybe if you hear something, that also gets. You should learn to encode the information properly. If you are involving your senses, see what sort of sense can I involve, how can I train my brain so that I can use all these different types of encoding, because visual things have different encodings, and probably audio has different encodings, text has different encodings. So when you see a text, or when you probably let's suppose rehearse a text, so it has different encodings. So it is better you can make different you can maybe have combine different ways. You can combine all these ways. So sometimes you may just utter 123 and 406, keep it in the brain and close your eyes and just remember that way. Okay, so this is the encoding part. And then we learned about the short term memory. So if you have something for the short term memory, so the better thing is if it's not that important, so it is better let the brain work on its own. It's not necessary to have everything in the long term memory, otherwise you won't be able to live in the world. The problem will happen, let's suppose something really bad happened to you and you did not have that in short term memory, it somehow went into your long term memory. Then the problem is that you won't be able to do things properly. Think if the time does not heal, they say that time heals everything. Why does it heal? Because we forget. Okay, the strength of neurons get decreased because we have a forgetting curve. So it is better, this thing is also better. So if we have only long term memory, then no human being will operate. What will happen is, because many sad things will happen to him in the life, so after that he can't forget them. So it is better that sometimes you should on purpose forget things. If there is a thing, let's suppose in the morning what happened, somebody scolded you, and rather than rehearsing it again and again, if you rehearse it again, what will happen, it will go into long term memory and it will disturb your whole day. So it is better, once it was in the short term memory, just move on and do something else, so that this short term memory is occupied by something else and your privacy information got evicted. Okay, if you just see me before 1 hour or 1.5 hours, I was very furious on something. Okay, but I knew this, I don't have to take this information to my long term. So what I did is I occupied myself with something else so that I can evict that thing. Okay, and otherwise it would affect me really badly. Okay, because otherwise I'll keep on rehearsing the things, I'll keep on saying, oh, this guy said this to me, no, I was supposed to do this, he was supposed to do this. It will continuously sort of register into my brain, and I'll rehearse it, make these connections strong unnecessarily, and that thing will go into my long term memory and it will hurt me for a long time. So it is better, the things that you want to keep in short term, keep them in short term. Let's suppose you had a fight with somebody, okay, and you think that this is going to get in the long term, so it is better to do something else and just evict that thing. Sometimes you feel, okay, I was scolded by somebody, also don't think much about that, otherwise you'll go into long term memory. Better to just stop it. When it was in short term memory, just evict it there. Okay, so don't rehearse it and try to forget that. How will you forget? Because when you will occupy yourself more, and you should not. That's why, like there are different hadiths which say when you are really furious, when you are in anger, so it's better if you are standing, you just sit. If you are sitting, you just get you stand. And maybe drink some water. The basic thing was to forget that thing. Probably you will occupy your brain with something else, so that you don't give that food to the brain. You don't give the brain time to think more, so that it turns that short-term information into long-term. Okay, and then there is this consolidation. So consolidation happens. So if there is an information which is necessary, okay, if there is information which you want to get in the long term, so it is better what you do is you will rehearse it a lot. Okay, we'll also see this consolidation, we'll take it in a while, and we'll take it in at length. And then this recall and recognition, this is our revision. So this, here our revision comes, and here probably we'll see these note making and other stuff. Okay, these are some steps. Okay, so this retrieval, and then if you have any questions till here, you can ask me if you have any questions. Raise your hand. Saying you should train yourself, such that if something is bad, immediately do something else immediately, so that you evict the information from your brain. You should do it on purpose, and you should know what happens. Because as I told you, like just before 1 hour, I think Mohsin knows it, I was furious on something. So what happened, if I kept on doing that, So it will get registered into my long-term memory, and I'll be in a really trouble. I couldn't have delivered this session. I couldn't have delivered this lecture also. The problem would have been because I would have registered my brain, I would have given it a lot of resources. So it was better I involved myself in some different things. And it was very active. So what I did is I involved myself in reading some stuff. So because in reading, I had to focus too much on that. I focused and slowly, initially it was hard to focus for 5-10 minutes. And after that, and slowly that process that thing got evicted from my brain. Yes, Mahmood has a question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum
I have
salam.
one question that what weightage should we give to our intuition and memory? Because sometimes memory can lead us to maybe something
Yes.
some wrong.
Memory,
Yeah.
memory is the first stepping stone for understanding a thing. Okay, and probably we'll also get to that. And for the intuition, sometimes intuition is wrong also. So whatever is intuitive, if that is something global, if many people feel that intuition, probably that has high chances of being correct. But if you are feeling an intuition, because intuition comes based on the information that you have. So whatever information you have, whatever experience of life you have, so intuition comes based on that. Let's suppose you are from a place where it snows, and there are people here they have never seen snow. So probably if you see something like snow, you will and intuition will come to your brain. Oh, probably it will compress. And the people who haven't seen snow, their intuition won't come to them. So intuition, it is a subjective thing. It usually depends on your life experiences and the information that you store in your head. So it is better to confirm your intuition once. Okay?
Thank you. I have one more question.
Yes.
So I don't know what's the correct term for that, but I would like to maybe ask you what's the relationship between intuition, memory, and the fitrat that Quran says you have, and
It's a
you
very hard
always.
question. So it's a very high topic of research. Maybe we'll take it separate. We'll have a discussion on this because I myself won't have a concrete answer for that. We can have a discussion and we can reach a consensus, because the thing is the literature won't be available by which I can support it. Okay, let's take it at the end. So here, what I'll do
Okay,
is
okay, thank you.
I'll now get into details of these consolidation and recall, because that's our main focus. So how to memorize the things for longer time, how to study effectively so that I can grab information as much as possible. I can understand information as much as possible. Okay. So the first thing is, so what we should do is, so I'll say retrieval for retrieval. I'm writing for this. So when you are consolidating or retrieving, so what you can do is you have cues and context. So what are these cues and context? So basically when you are learning something, so some cues get registered into your brain. So I'll just tell you an example. Many of you might have had a food and it smelled really good. So if you somehow sense that smell again, that food, that memory comes back. So that is somehow what's called as a cue. Okay, and the context is if some things happened, if something like of that sort happened again, you'll remember that thing, because that's how our brain stores information. Okay, it sees those cues in context. Okay, and usually they say in habit, it has a cycle. This habit has a cycle. How is a habit formed? Okay, have a habit formed like this. We have cue, we have then a routine, and then we have a reward. Okay, and I'm again making it a simplest example. What is a cue? Let's suppose, why does a smoker smoke a cigarette? So let's suppose his cue is when he eats food or when he has lunch or maybe dinner, he gets that cue. Oh, I finished something. That is the cue for him. You should have a cigarette. Okay, that's a cue for him. So what's the routine for him then? Then he grabs up his packet of cigarettes and then probably has one cigarette or something and he smokes a cigarette. That's routine. And then he has a reward of that. Probably some different chemical processes happen in his body or in her body. So what happens in that is he gets some reward of that. So this is usually what's called as habit cycle. We get some cue, we follow a routine, and we get some reward. Okay. So this is how information is stored in the brain. So you should now get better with cues. Okay, you should somehow have good cues and good context. Let me take a physical example. So if you write on something, let's suppose you wrote something, you are making notes. Okay. If you are making notes, it is better to use different color pens. Why? Because they'll generate more cues. Okay, that they'll generate more cues. Because sometimes you'll remember, oh my god, yes, I wrote with red pen, then I had to cross it over, and I did something. Because it will give you multiple cues when you write something. So you should do it in such a way so you generate as much cues as possible. Okay, let's suppose I said just one thing. So colored notes, they'll look good. At least have 2-3 color pens. So what will happen is if you write something with blue, So somehow your brain will remember that, oh, I wrote that with blue, but I was supposed to write it with red. You'll cross this blue and then you will write it with red or something. Okay? Brain will register all these things. So this will provide a cue to you once you recall after that. Okay, and this context, so context is how you wrote it. Let's suppose you were in a particular and you are reading particular thing, so you are setting up a context again. Okay, you wrote something and let's suppose you wrote A, B, C, D. Okay, these things are context, so the hierarchy that you wrote it into. So you did not do the things on random. If you do things at random, our brain is really bad at that random thing. So it is better you do things one followed by other, one followed by other, because it has a template of thinking then. So you are giving the brain context. Okay, the first thing is you should give your brain enough cues. And this is not just for notes, it applies everywhere. Okay, if you are doing something, make sure that you are generating enough cues and make sure that you are giving enough context to your brain, because your information will be stored in that way. So once you get that cue back, okay, and what will happen, you will remember the information more. Okay, that's one thing. And then when you sort of do that, so memory basically, so memories are not stored as exact copies, but they are reconstructed every time. So if you see, so let's suppose this is not just computer's memory that you are just storing something and when you retrieve, it is basically giving you the same information. No, they give it reconstructs information. Reconstructs. There's a difference between we and computers. So us and computers have a difference, because when we have to recall something and we basically don't just take that information and say it. No, we reconstruct it. Okay, that's a very important difference. So memories are not stored as exact copies, but what they have done is they are reconstructed each time in which the memory was encoded, and can significantly affect the process. Sometimes you are able to remember. Let's suppose if you tell me about some experience, I'll tell you something. But if I have to again recall that experience, let's suppose I was with Mahmood and I was with some other people with whom I created an experience and we did something. So let's suppose some other people asked me about that experience. So probably I'll be telling them experience, but once I'll talk with Mahmood, I'll be able to get that sort of more accurate information, because I'll have major cues with me. I'll have all these things again in the similar fashion. So you might have even had this sometime when you had a story with a friend, and when you were saying it to something, you missed a lot of information. But when you were with the friend whom you created this memory with, so what will happen is you'll probably remember the exact version of that. That's because of those cues and context. Okay, so keep this in mind, that our information is not stored at exact copies. It's rather reverse. So what happens is we reconstruct information every time. So that's why sometimes you say I knew this questionnaire, but somehow I forgot it. So how do you forget? Because you did not have enough cues. Sometimes you smell a thing, you say, I know this smell, but I cannot remember what this food is. Okay, but if then you have a friend besides you, or you have your mom besides you, you will remember a lot of stuff. You'll say, Mom, you made this thing that time, and that's why I remember this. This is this dish. Okay, so because your mom is also a cue there. Okay, and let me just tell you one more thing. Then there is forgetting. So forgetting occurs when this retrieval cue fails. Okay, when this queue fails, so what will happen is your neural connections weaken, and due to this lag, it is called as decay theory. Okay, and then we are unable to recall those things. So it is better you have as many cues as possible. Yes, now I'll take the question.
Are these cues that we are talking about, are they similar to tokens?
Tokens?
Yes.
Tokens are very different. So by cues I mean सारी वो चीजें जो तुम्हें कुछ याद दिलाएं. जैसे let's suppose this sound a bottle. This sound a bottle remembers me of drinking, because I know whenever I drink, this bottle creates some sound. This is a cue.
Tokens, like I'm talking about in NLP.
That
Whenever we
token is everything. That's why
different.
I knew where you are referring.
Okay.
So, but this has
Okay.
nothing to do with that, because tokens are just man-made names. Okay, so tokens are
Okay.
everything. Image pixel is a token, and what I can say, there are many non-CS people. I don't want to bore them with this. Token is basically any information. So token is the smallest chunk of information. So when you have this in NLP, you basically tokenize the information. So there are different levels of tokenizing. There is something called as like word level tokenizing, and there is something even now we have bit level tokenizing also. There are the tokenizing called as BPEs. So token is basically a unit of information, and this may make sense or may not make sense. This is entire different field. Okay. Now we'll have to see what should we do so that we'll remember this information for as long as possible. Yes, Muzaffar has a question.
सर जैसे हम कोई अगर वीडियो हम आज देख रहे हैं,
Yes.
कोई भी वीडियो, कुछ भी इंफॉर्मेशन होंगे, अगर हम वो 1 साल बाद देखेंगे, तो हमें कुछ वो नया कुछ उसमें लग रहा है,
Yes.
मतलब नए हिसाब से वो। Is it because of this reconstructed
Yes,
information?
yes, yes, yes. It's because of reconstruction. Because what happens, it's good that our brain does not store the exact copy, because it reconstructs the information, and then what it'll do is it'll probably add your new experiences also. Okay, because sometimes you might have memorized something in the childhood, और तुम्हें उसका मतलब बिल्कुल नहीं पता था, and when you grew up and suddenly you learned something, and when you uttered that, it made sense to you. Okay, sometimes I am saying to my mom many things that you said, I had no clue, I just remember them as you said them, but जब मैं आज उनको याद करता, it makes sense to me. Okay, yeah, she like let's suppose she said some proverb or she said something, so that time I had memorizing capacity, my brain memorized it, but मुझे world का context कुछ नहीं पता था. Once I grew up, but that thing was still with me. So after that, when I uttered it, I said, oh, I knew this now, actually it is a meaning associated with it. Okay, and even happened with different quotes, with बहुत सारे quotes, बहुत सारी शायरी के साथ ऐसा होता है, and you probably learn that by heart and you have that rote memorization, and after a while when you have real world experiences, you get to their meaning also. So yes, it's because of reconstruction. Yes, and the question we have. I think somebody raised hand, or maybe asked a question in the chat. No. Should we move ahead? How many of you
Yes.
are enjoying the session? Are you enjoying? Yes, everybody is attentive. Okay. Now, first thing is, now we should enhance our memory retention. So how to enhance this? So we'll talk about that. How to enhance this? How to enhance retention and recall. So by retention I mean when you are doing something, how to retain as much as possible. Recall means when you are probably saying it to somebody, when you are writing an exam, when you are reconstructing the information. So now we'll go to a little bit divergent. I'll tell you there are two types of learning. Okay, one is called as active learning, and this is called as passive learning. Okay, we'll start with probably passive learning so that you understand the active learning way better. So what passive learning is, it involves receiving some information without actively engaging in it. So what is the meaning of engagement? Let's suppose you are right now in semi-passive mode probably, but many of you will be in active mode. So passive information is when you listen to something. And when you listen but you don't pay full attention, you are doing something else also. Let's suppose you are driving a car and you have full focus on the road and the music is also playing. That time you are listening passively because you are not actively engaging with the material. Okay, you are not actively engaging with that. Okay, let's suppose reading without engagement. Sometimes you read and you go through lines and you understand nothing out of it. Maybe your brain is occupied with something else, but you do utter these words. But the problem, what happens is, you are not able to understand. Okay, so this is what I mean by passive learning. So passive learning is basically unengaging. So what is because you don't engage yourself much in that. So that is learning. There also some learning happens. Okay, but it is very slow. The first thing is very slow. Let's suppose if you listen to a song and you are just driving something. If you listen it multiple times, probably then you will be able to remember it, because there you are not actively listening. You are passively listening to it. So you will have poor retention and recall there, and you probably have limited understanding, and you will have a lot of dependencies. So there you will create a lot of dependencies, you will have poor retention, and then you will have limited understanding. Now coming to the good part, active learning. We'll have to actively learn. So what is this active learning? It involves actively engaging with the information, okay, to construct meaning and understanding. Because when now you are actively involving with it. So what are the characteristics? So right now some of you are doing active learning. So they're engaging in this discussion. They're engaging and then asking me questions. Asking questions. Because when they ask questions, they'll have to remember what I said previously. Okay, they cannot come out of the blue. They cannot come in the middle and ask me something. Probably the first thing is that question won't make much sense, and if they even ask something, so they had that context then. So it is better if some of you right now, or maybe most of you, are engaging with me. So we are having a in-person, probably virtual discussion. So, but you are engaging with the material. You are engaging with whatever I say, and after that, you are having some questions related to that. You ask me a question, you interrupt me. Okay, can I clarify? Can you clarify this? So you are asking questions and seeking for clarifications, and then you are analyzing at the same time. Okay, as let's suppose Mahmood asked a question, he was doing analysis. Okay, sir said this, and after that he said this. So how are these two related? Fahad said something, and he was analyzing. He heard something from natural language processing. Okay, that is entirely different. And he heard something Q from here. He said, is there a relation between that Q and token? Is there some relation? So what he was doing, he was engaging with me, at the same time he's analyzing the thing, because whatever information he had, prior information, he was analyzing that also. Okay, that is what made you actively participate. So that's what made you actively participate in these discussions, and probably hands-on. If I am saying you, okay, are you able to hear me? Are you able to listen? How many of you are attentive? Can you raise your hands? You are raising the hands. Okay, and from that gesture, I know how actively you are engaged. So if I say, raise your hands, and if I see clicks are coming faster, I know that people are listening to me. Otherwise, maybe what will happen to some people is, some people will raise hands, and other will see, oh, something happened. Let's also raise hands. Okay, they'll get into that mode. But from this I can learn how many people have raised hands the moment I said something. That means they're actively engaging in this. Okay, that's active participation. And then, as I said, this, you are connecting different information. You are connecting the prior information, personal experiences, and other things also. Okay, so how many of you are listening to me? Yes. Okay. So this is active learning. So active learning, in nutshell, I'll say this engage. This is basically an active engagement with the information, so that you construct some meaning and understanding. So what I said is, by engagement, and then you ask question, you see clarifications, you analyze the things, and you connect to your previous knowledge with the current that I'm saying, and it has a lot of benefits. And you should do this active learning. This is what we will focus on. We should do, for most of the time, we should do active learning. Okay. So why is this important? Because I told you, better retention, deep understanding, improved critical thinking, and then you can increase your engagement with me also, and you can prepare for the real world challenges because you have actually learned something. Okay, so probably I'll write them. So it's better retention. So better retention, when you learn something actively, so it will remain with you, and you can recall this information over very long periods of time, and then you will have a good understanding, deeper understanding. Deeper understanding. And the other thing that I have written here is improves critical thinking. Critical thinking. So why am I saying this? Because when you listen to me, you think on your own. You don't just say ki whatever he's saying, okay, let's store it and then spit it out somewhere. No, you have to analyze information, and after that, you have to ask questions to yourself. You have to probably see, oh, that's why this happened, and you are basically making different connections. Okay, that's what it also improves your critical thinking, and it basically prepares you for the real world. So whatever you have learned, you will apply it in the real world. Now we'll see how to basically do this active learning. The question basically we are answering is how to enhance retention recall. So I said there are two types of learnings. One type of learning is active learning, and one is passive learning. I won't straight away reject this passive learning, but this is also required sometimes. Passive learning is also required. Okay, sometimes the passive learning, let's suppose, where you don't want to actively involve, but still you what we say is you basically maybe doing passive learning there because it's not immediately required, but most of the times, around 70 to 80% of the times, if you want to learn something, you want to actively learn it. Okay, that's the thing. So now we'll see what are some strategies. What are the strategies by which you can do this active learning? Okay, the first thing is obviously you can have discussions with the people. Okay, you can have problem-based learning. There's a problem you're solving that, and you can have case studies, and you can do hands-on activities, and you can do a self-reflection, and a lot of things can be done for this. Okay, and now we'll take these things one by one. What should we do? We'll take these things one by one, and all of these things will be practical. You can start it right today. Okay, what is the first thing that we can do? Okay, so while making notes, okay, first thing is we'll see how to make notes, because now you're learning now actively. So the first thing is, when you are studying for a lecture, when you are sitting for a lecture, sit at a quiet place, okay, where nobody disturbs you. Turn your phones probably off. If not off, put them in do not disturb mode. Okay, probably have some water bottle where you know I'll have sips of water, and you have the clean atmosphere around you. Have those things sorted out, and don't have this chaos before learning anything, because your environment should be so that your brain tells you now I can learn. Okay, and there are something called as there's a special term for this, keystone habits. So these are called keystones. So keystones basically mean if one thing falls, then other things you will do. Probably sometimes you might have felt, if I woke up for Fajr, everything was good after that. So I woke up for Fajr, and after that I could do this, because the main thing, the first thing, keystone was good. So whatever you did in the morning, so if that thing is good, it has a cascading effect. So you will probably see after that, if I did this thing good, you have motivation to do other thing. You have motivation to do other thing. Okay, if this keystone is not good, so what will happen is you'll probably say, hey, my whole day has been a waste. Okay, let's do something else. Or we'll not do anything. I'll sleep or do that something. So it is better to set up your environment. So okay, for learning, you should set up the environment. Set up the environment. By environment, I said a lot of things. So you should make sure that there is no noise. You should make sure that your phone does not disturb. You should make sure that you probably lock the door. If you feel that I'm living in a hostel or something, you lock the door. So it is better if you are not listening to, let's suppose, something. If you are only watching something, so it's better to plug your ear so that nobody disturbs you. And but sometimes plugging ear can be also dangerous, because sometimes when you just flip that page also creates cues. So you flipped the page, and that sound, when that falls onto your ears, it registers something in the brain. It also gives you cues, but you will have to make choices. Am I in the right environment? That's why people study in the libraries, because there is quiet atmosphere. Okay, nobody does anything there. Everybody is there for sole one purpose, that I have to learn something, I have to read something. Okay, set up an environment for the notes. So now we'll see how to make notes. Okay, this is a very important thing, and I also come to coding, how to make coding notes. So when you make notes, let's suppose if you are making notes on paper, or if you're making digital notes. So let's suppose this is your tablet, this is whatever you make notes on. So what you can do is, you can probably have 3 sections in this, like this. Okay, pay more focus over here. So this is for main content. Okay, this is for main content. Whatever you want to study, whatever you are listening, and you are writing that here. Maybe this will be a bit detailed. Okay, how much detail you want, it depends on you. So as I was asked question in the beginning of the session, I sometimes have urged to write everything down. So maybe if that gives you satisfaction, that leaves you with this thing, if I write everything down, so probably if you don't look at notes, so the thing is not, you are not making notes for revision only, you are making notes for retention. Don't have this confusion that I am making notes for revision only. No. So when you are making notes, you are actively involving in the material now, because what you are doing, you are listening something, and then you are using hand. Okay, and then you're creating some sound. A lot of cues and these things are, a lot of these sensory organs are getting used. So it is better, because you will learn better, you will retain information better when you write. And if you never even revise these notes, if you make notes, that's more than enough. Okay, and sometimes people say I made notes but I never saw them, as I think Muzaffar said. It's okay if you never see them, so you are still better off than the person who did not make notes. Okay, so the first thing is, you will put content over here. The details you'll discuss, how much details you want, because with how much details you are satisfied. If you feel I'm not satisfied with this detail, I should add more detail. Okay, then on this here, so this I'll call keywords and questions. Keywords and questions. So I'll tell you where this will be helpful, and this will be for the additional information, for the additional info. Okay, so you wrote the main content on this. So let's suppose we were discussing about Python functions. So you wrote about Python, what are functions, you wrote every detail here. So now you know on this page I have written something about functions, and there are some important things that we have discussed. So you can write those keywords. I wrote about functions, I wrote about keywords, I wrote about arguments, and you can just write keywords. And sometimes a thing might need a question, so you can write a question. Okay, what if I do this? And then you will never read this content, never read it. Okay, so usually what people do is that they highlight their notes and then they reread their notes. That is the bad technique, and it has been established scientifically that this does not give you that more recall power or more retention power. So what will happen is, once you see these keywords, you should somehow recall these things. And if you can't recall, you will read the question, and you will probably cover this whole page. You'll cover this page, and you'll ask yourself, okay, what was the question? Because here now you are actively again engaging with this. Once you are recalling, you made the notes once you come to revision, so what you do, you are asking yourself questions. Okay, this is a technique, this is called as active recall. This technique is named as active recall. Okay, so active recall basically is, you have a question and you have to create an answer for that. And because you have written that, you have written a note and you are just hiding it, and if you are not able to recall the answer, then you look at the notes. Okay, what was the answer? Because it's not about how much information you take in, it's about how much you can take out. Okay, and that's very important, because you can take a humongous information inside, but if it becomes really hard to take it out, then it's of no use. So it is better, what you do is, you ask questions to yourself. When you make materials, make sure you write these questions, make sure you write these keywords. Okay, because once you are revising, please don't read this content again. Just read the question, and then actively recall it. Okay, I'll tell you an example. Many of you have given exams. So what happened? You saw a question in the exam. So you saw that question and you tried to figure out the answer, but you couldn't figure out the answer. And after that, you went back to your home and you opened a notebook and then saw that answer. And I'll bet that answer remained with you for a very long time. Maybe something happened in 10th, you went for the 10th exam and then some question was there and you couldn't answer that properly. When you went back and you have an urge to open the notebook, you opened the notebook and saw that answer. And that answer you will remember for a longer time. Why? Because you did actively recall that time. Okay, how many of you have such an experience? I have multiple such experiences where I couldn't solve something, I went back to home, I saw something and I recalled it. After that it lasted with me for a longer time. So this is what is active recall. So active recall means, so you should sort of challenge yourself, ask yourself questions. When you ask the question, so what it does is it forces your brain to think. Reading does not force your brain to think. Okay, reading, you're just reading it over. So but once you ask a question, okay, now your brain is put in a spot. Okay, tell me the answer to this. Now it will have to reconstruct information. Okay, and it will have to activate its neural pathways. If that is not getting activated, then if you are probably rereading it, nothing happens to the brain because brain is not actively involved. But when you ask questions to yourself, okay, I have written this question. When I was making the notes, I wrote this question here. Okay, what's the meaning of this? Now your brain will actually involve. Okay, it'll try to reconstruct information, and sometimes it will fail to reconstruct. So it's better. Okay, so what will happen is then you'll look at the content. Then you will say, oh my god, okay, this is the thing it was. Okay, next time when you will recall it, probably it will be way better. Okay, you will remember way better. And along the meantime, you may learn some new information also. That's why you are keeping these notes, and you will add this additional information here. Sometimes you will, let's say whatever you wrote, you have very limited understanding. So after a while, you thought, oh, I should add this information also. So you can add this information also over here. Okay, that's how you should make your notes. And you can use digital notes, you can use some other notes. So this is there is a way which is called as flashcards. So people usually make flashcards. So they make flashcards for this. So let's suppose if they have separate notes and they want to digitize this part, they want to digitize this questioning part, or maybe they have this content. Now what they do is they'll make flashcards. So by flashcards, what will have? Flashcards will have a front and a back. So it will have a front and a back. So on the front there will be a question or there will be a keyword, and on the back there will be answer. So when you click on something, it will show the front. It will tell you, okay, it will ask you a question. Then you will have to recall it. But by no means, if you were able to recall it, what you can click show me the back. You can basically tell me show me the content. Okay, either you can use this notes when you're making it, make it like this, and now you can also create flashcards. Then you can write a front and a back. You can write the question and write the answer on the back also. Okay, this will help you, and this will basically create the atmosphere examining with you. And there is a software called as Anki. This I have heavily utilized. Okay, this thing I mostly used it when I had to recall some information. I'll show you a demo. Just give me a sec. Till that you can probably ask me some questions. I'll just set this up.
Yes.
So this app is called as Anki. So this is the web version which I opened. So it has an Android app also. It has iOS app. It has Windows app. It supports everywhere. So what you do basically is you create flashcards in it. You create flashcards. So what are these flashcards? Let me show you what flashcards are. Okay, so if I go back to this, if you see here, I have added some flashcards. Let's suppose this is Python. Okay, if you click on this Python, so there I have said what is this code, what this code outputs and why. So here this is the question. So if you can see it on the screen, so this is the question over here. So this is the question. Okay, I'll probably zoom it a bit more so that this is perfectly visible for everybody. So you see this question now. Okay, so here's the question. So this is the front part of that. So this is the front part of flashcard. So now I am being actively involved in the material. I'm saying, okay, what this code outputs and why. So I'll have to see definition function x is equal to 1 and print x. So what should it print? So I'll have to think. So I'll give the answer also. Probably if I have no clue, I'll also give that. So I'll also explain to myself why will it give the answer. Why will it give that answer? Okay, I'm done with the answer. So what I'll do is after that I'll click on the show answer. If you have seen it, I'll click on the show answer. So now what it does is it is showing, it will give me an error. It will be name error. And then why? Because function wasn't called. And even if it was, x is a local variable. So x is a local. Now you are learning basically scope of variables here. So this question is from scope of variables. So which we are going to learn probably in the next lecture. Okay, there you will see that I am calling print of x, but x is nowhere defined. So what I'll get this name error. X is not defined. So function wasn't called, and even if it was, x is a local, because you have written explanation also, because when you are preparing the material. Oh, okay, you saw this. So this is how flashcards look like, and then there will be a lot of things. So I'll also show you what is the use of this again, hard, good, easy. So let's suppose this is, and again the next question, what is the output of this code and why? Again you will try to forget, try to recall this. Okay, so why is this? So why is this? So what is the answer? So you'll have to think about this. So now again, once you are done with your thinking process, then you can show the answer. So name error again. Global X is not defined. Okay, function wasn't called. So you can again come up with these answers, and you will see how accurate are you. So this is this Anki web. So now you have decks over here. So if you see, I have created a lot of decks for machine learning. If you see over here, machine learning, and then artificial intelligence. If I open this deck, I have added this code. What is AI complete? This is the question. What is AI complete? Okay, then I have to think about what AI complete is. I'll think for a while, and then I'll show. Okay, I'm convinced that I know the answer. I'm convinced I don't know the answer, so I'll click on show answer. The most difficult problem in AI artificial would require making computers as intelligent as people or strong AI. So for example, machine translation. Okay, something like that. But I don't agree with this. Don't take this. This is just for demos, and these definitions are wrong, by the way. So what I'll do is, again, this is next card. What is the working definition of AI? Okay, you'll have to recall. Okay, what is the definition of AI? And then you will show answer. A computer program that improves its performance by learning from the experience. Okay, these are decks. Now how to add a deck? So you can see here, create a deck. You can click on this create a deck and name the deck. Let's suppose we are learning about something. We are learning about learning. So I'll just name it as learning. And I'll create, okay. So you saw this deck got created, learning. Okay, now in this I'll add cards. So what I can do is I'll press just add over here. Then here is an option add, and or I'll click A on the keyboard. So if you see this add over here, this add. So I can click add or A. So now it shows front side. What is the front side? So I'll ask a question. What is learning? So this I'll write. Basically, I'm preparing this flashcard. On the back, I'll write its answer. And it supports a lot of things. It supports pictures, it supports audio, it supports video, it supports everything. It supports text also. And you can tag these questions also. You can write tags. Under which tag do I want to write it? And then you can add it. Okay? And if you go back to these decks, you will see these decks over here. You will see learning. And the first card you will get is what is learning. And then you can show answer. Okay? Are you clear with the interface of this application? How many of you are clear with this? So this is one of the techniques by which you will actually learn. So you're making notes, and parallelly you're also writing the questions, and you're probably translating the flashcards. So sometimes if you're writing notes on your paper, you can create paper flashcards. But I'll highly suggest you to make these flashcards, because these online tools are way better for making these flashcards. Okay? Now I'll take your questions. You had some questions. Yes, Fahad.
Sir, my question is that while making notes,
Mm-hmm.
what should I make notes of? Like you said, we make notes for basically two purposes, recall and retention, and both are as important.
Yes.
So let's say that I am learning web development. I have to
Yes.
learn HTML,
Yes.
CSS,
Yes. Yes.
JavaScript, but I won't go around making notes of HTML tags, what they are, how they. It is.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to make notes about some JavaScript and some CSS. But knowing about these HTML tags, it is also important. And going to the website and checking, it is very tedious work. So how should I proceed in this scenario?
So this note making is a subjective term. Why is it subjective? Because probably the information that you find is not important, will be important for somebody else. Let's suppose if you tell me to make notes, if you tell me to make notes of machine learning, I'll probably skip most of the stuff. While I skip most of the stuff because I'll think this is not important for me. So let's suppose I'll write something. Okay, I'll skip the definition of AI. I'll skip, let's suppose, what learning is. I'll skip many other things. I'll sometimes say, oh, this point is worth writing, because I did not know about this point. I loved this point. Probably I should write it. So this note making process is very subjective. So if you feel of writing like something, so you should write it. If you know it, you should not write it. But make sure that you should not overestimate things also. So it's better that I'll agree here with Muzaffar. Why? He says I write everything. So it's good because he's not being on a toss then. Okay, let's suppose if you write everything, probably it will, if you are watching a 1 hour lecture or if you are reading for 1 hour, probably it will take you 10 more minutes to write that. If you are giving those 10 minutes, but you are ensuring that you are not losing on the information. So it is better to add that also. Okay, but this note making, it's totally individual process, because the information that you find important may not be important for me also. Yes, Fahad, you have a follow-up question.
Sir, actually, if I watch a 1 hour video and
Mm-hmm.
and I am making notes and thinking about it, it will take me at least 2.5 to 2 hours. Am I doing something wrong?
No, it's good because learning takes time. So it's good. So you should not think I should cover 1 hour video in 1 hour. No, it does. It never happens. It never happens. If you think, that's why like many of the good people who make videos, they'll call you pause and ponder, pause and then think. And let's suppose if you are watching a 1 hour video and then you are taking 2 hours to completely digest the video. It's good. Why it's better? Usually I hate myself for this, but I do this. I usually watch videos on 2x and 1.5x, something like this. But I would originally, if I have to read some new material, I would love to have it on 1x. I never increase the speed that time. If this video material is very engaging, if I feel that I know this, I just have to I probably have to brush it up. I'll probably 2x or 1. If I'm not actively engaging with it. If there is something which is really important, so I'll probably love to watch it on 1x and not increasing the speed, probably just pausing it and watching something and pausing it here and then thinking again. Okay, or if I'm making notes, so while making notes I'm thinking also. So it is not at all a problem that if you are watching 1 hour lecture and then you're taking 2 hours to understand it. It's good because you are absorbing the more material. It's not about time. Let's suppose for me, if you see my video, so why I chose to write on this, I could have just brought slides because I know my speaking pace is way faster. So if I brought slides, probably I'll cover Python in 5 lectures, but it will be total nonsense and it will not benefit people. I have also done that previously. I have brought slides and these people are saying me, we didn't understand a word. So it is better that when I write, I have to slow down myself. Okay, if I have a slide, so I have a slide, I have few slides, I can read it up very fast. Okay, and but if I have to write the things, now this becomes a bottleneck. Writing becomes a bottleneck. That's why you might have seen I don't write full spellings also. What I do is I'll write half spellings. Okay, I won't write full spellings. So because the thing is, my information is coming at a very higher pace. The throughput is very high. But now this becomes a bottleneck. So it's good for teaching also because it gives me time to write and it gives you people time to think. It's okay if you are taking what I'm saying. If you are taking 2 hours to just watch 1 hour video, it's way better. I'll say it's way better because it's not about how much time are you learning. It's about how much have you learned. Okay, the metric should be different. Metric should not be only how much duration have you watched. Somebody watched a 1 hour video. Let's suppose here there will be people who will stay with me for, let's suppose, 2 hours. We're having a 2 hour session. They'll stay with me for 2 hours and they'll just close the session and go. They'll think, okay, we have understood. But there will be people who will probably analyze this, and I know among there are people who will analyze the session. So they'll just sit, they'll again play the video, and then they'll think, pause and ponder. They'll keep on pausing it. It doesn't mean they have just watched this content. No, now they have got more information from the other people. They have got way more information from other people, and maybe there is some information which I never intended to say, but I said something related to that. As you are physical human beings, so you have your brain of your own, so you will basically get something better from that information. Sometimes rather than a teacher, a student may learn better. Why? Because he said something and student connected it with something else, but that should be given time. It's not that let's suppose whatever I said a lot of things in the previous, let's say, 30 minutes. Okay, and the understanding I have of these 30 minutes will be way better than most of you. Why? Because this, I have to reconstruct those things, then I have to tell you these things. So how can you at least get at that level is by thinking. So you will just listen to me and after you will have to pause. So short answer is, this is all right if you take 2 hours. If you take 3 hours, it's all right. So in my alma mater, when I was in ISC, it took us, let's suppose there was a lecture of 1.5 hours. Okay, and without exaggerating, I'm telling you this, it took us around 5 to 6 hours to fully understand the things. Not even fully. We'll say it took us at least 5 to 6 hours, and it was so exhausting. And because these people have been teaching and they are experts in their fields, they were teaching something, and it was looking very easy when they were teaching it. And after we went to home and were thinking on this own. And I still remember the times when we had lectures of, his name is Yadatin Narehari, so he used to teach game theory. So his one lecture, then we used to go back home, and then for a couple of hours we used to discuss. And then there were turns to discuss, okay, what do you think about this? What did he said there? Okay, what do you think? So we had at least a group of, still I know these people, we have that group of 5-6 people, and we were watching his lecture then pausing, okay, what do you think he said here? No, I believe he said this. No, this probably means this. We have sort of discussions because we know this material was pretty heavy, and it took us easily 5 to 6 hours to just cover 1.5 hours. Okay, and that's the reason in IIC there are only 2 lectures, at most I'll say 2 lectures per day, and your lectures are only on weekdays, Saturdays, Sundays off, because they themselves also know this material is pretty hard. Okay, it's better if you are learning something, and what is hard, it also defines it based on what you know previously. So if you don't know that, that material becomes hard. So again, long story short, it's good that if you are spending more time. Yes, yes, Mahmoud has a question. Fahad, you got the answer to the question, by the way?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just wanted to share my this thing with you. Maybe I would consider that I only take notes in 3 situations. So one situation is that I don't know the subject. For example, if I am reading a research paper and there is some new term that I don't know, there's some new formula, math formula to me, so I will take a note of that. Why? Because I don't know that and I would like to remember that. One thing. And second thing is that when we had too many subjects, like when I was in bachelor's, there were 5 subjects in one semester, so it was very hard to remember in one go everything. And third thing is when even if I know already a subject, but I expected that if I discuss with someone like you or someone else, he will ask me very detailed questions like we do in case of interviews. So what's your thought on this? Is this
My point is, so I can just give a generic answer. The answer is, if you want to learn the stuff, so you should first assess कि I don't know it, because not knowing is the affirmation that you have to learn it. So if you somehow have a slightest doubt that I know it, then game done, you won't be able to learn. Okay, when you go, I would love to discuss here the Quranic ayah, because that is what that stands for. When you open the Quran after Surah Al-Fatiha, it says Alif Lam Mim. What's the meaning of that? Nobody knows. So literally there are two types of things. The first type is Zaban Hal, and then there's Zaban Qal. Zaban Hal means what is the meaning of Hal? Current situation में क्या बोलना चाह रहा है? And Zaban Qal means literal meaning क्या है? We use figure of speech. Just a little digression. तो जब हम लोग किसी को बोलते हैं वो कोई लेट आता है तो उसको हम बोलते हैं ओ बहुत जल्दी आ गया यार, तो ही नोज कि ही इज बीइंग sarcastic. वो बोल रहा है कोई रीजन दे, नो 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 आई बिकम दिस दैट. सो जबान काल जो मेरा है, इट इज सेइंग समथिंग एल्स, बट हाल उसको कुछ और बोल रहा है. हाल इज सेइंग कि तुम लेट हो गए, और काल बोल रहा है कि तुम लेट नहीं हुए, ओके बहुत जल्दी आ गए. तो सिमिलरली इफ यू जस्ट ओपन द कुरान, इट सेज alif lam mim. Alif lam mim basically, if you say these are called huruf muqatta'at, we don't know the meaning. And you know, literally God is telling us कि तुम लोग को नहीं पता है. You accept that you are all unpad. You are illiterate people, you are uneducated people, you accept that. So that's the first thing that we should come to the notion कि मुझे नहीं पता ये चीज़ है, I don't know. So when you come to that, then he answers it itself. God answers it. Alif Lam Mim basically means कि देखो तुम इतने लोग हो, तुम्हें इसका meaning भी नहीं पता. Then he says okay God, I surrender myself. Okay, you tell me कि क्या करना है. He said Zalikal Kitab. He says okay, then you should read books. Kitab, you should read books. That is primary source of knowledge. You should read books. Okay God, I am sure कि I'll read books. Then tell me what kind of book should I read? Then he says in the answer, Zalikal Kitab la raiba fi. You should write the books in which there is no doubt, which will be like research papers, purely tested. Zalikal Kitab la raiba fihi. Okay. If I read the books, then the book should be such that it's not wrong resource, it's a good resource. Okay, then what will happen to me? Okay, then he'll say Hudal lil muttaqin. Then you will get hidayah. Basically, hidayah means you'll get knowledge. You'll get knowledge because by knowledge you'll get hidayah. And वो जो तुम्हारे में वो illiteracy था, some part of it went away. So that's how learning should be done. So अगर तो तुम कुछ देख रहे हो and you have a slight thing कि I know about it, okay, then you will hardly learn things. So it is better to come with surrendering. कि feel like that कि I don't know this stuff. I'll probably hear it from them. I'll probably hear it from the book. I'll see कि ये क्या बोलना चाह रहा है. And then probably come up with a thinking process कि अच्छा ये ऐसा बोला, मुझे इसके बारे में पहले से ये पता था. Come with that beginner's mindset कि I'm a totally beginner. Okay, I don't know anything. It's very hard, but it's very hard to come up with that beginner mindset कि मुझे because we have these prior notions. So it's way better if you come with this, because they say that this beginner's mind is a beautiful mind. Because if you see these how people learn to ride these cars, they are so attentive. Okay, and if a slight thing happens, they'll go here and there, and after a while it becomes automatic for them. And then they'll listen to music, they'll eat something, and then they'll drive. Then the beauty basically fades away. So the answer is that you should always think that I'm a beginner in this subject, I'll learn it. Okay, and that's why I'm saying teacher and a student should at least have a knowledge gap. If they don't have that, please don't go to those teachers. If you don't feel that there is knowledge gap, the first thing you should feel that there is knowledge gap. Yeah, there is a lot of things I don't know, and the diffusion will happen. So if you don't feel that, you should be well versed that you should be able to identify the teacher. If you are just watching somebody's YouTube video and from the looks it feels कि यार इससे तो मैं नहीं पढ़ सकता, he doesn't know a thing. So then that somehow your brain gets suggested into that. That's why in Islamic culture we say you should give respect to the teachers. Why? क्योंकि वो उसको you should at least think that he is above your level. Otherwise the diffusion won't happen. So you should finding a teacher is really hard, and that's why finding a book is also really hard. अगर कोई book पढ़नी है ना, तो you should be well versed कि I submit to it, कि मुझे पता है ये जो author ने book लिखी है, he knows more than me and he knows what he's talking about. ओके महमूद, सो यू शुड कम अप विद दिस माइंडसेट कि अगर तुम कोई चीज़ देख रहे हो और सही में तुम्हें लर्न करना है, दैट टाइम यू मेक नोट्स. And as you are saying कि कोई चीज़ तो अगर तुम्हें पता है and you just want to passively learn, you can just watch the video. And I do a lot of stuff like that, passive reading करनी है, because many of the times I think ये चीज़ तो मुझे पता है. Okay, let's do one thing. Maybe he'll say something else. I'll just play the video and वो उसको मैं चलाऊंगा. As I said, 2x या 1.5x पे मैं देखता हूँ. So it's also a good thing. But if you are learning a thing, so you must sort of surrender there. Yes, Mahmood. Follow-up question.
Yes, so I think now my question got refined a bit. So now my question is that usually when I make a notes, I make a lot of notes, like Muzaffar said.
Yes.
I also write down everything when I do not understand a subject. But my problem is that when I make notes, I usually don't refer back to them because
No
either
problem.
I
Yes,
yes,
yes. No, but
yes.
if you never refer to them, it's all right. If you never refer, but the retention part was done because when you wrote, you actively engaged with the material. Probably you are now retaining more information. You know how much notes I have created. So probably Mohsen might know. He has been he is my cousin, so he also comes to my house. He knows a humongous amount of notes I have. Like for each subject I have in undergrad, I have probably 300-400 pages written. Okay, so why do I write these notes? And at that time I was pretty new. I didn't know anything, and I was writing everything that's on there. So I was writing everything. I was writing this information here and there, and probably most of them I have never opened. I have never opened, but still I feel that something got registered into my brain. That actually the question should be, what's the need of education? Because education is when you forget, what remains is education. What remains when you forget everything, that is education. So because you read a lot, so once you forget most of these things, what remains in you is education. Okay, and how will that remain? That remain is because that retention happened in you. Otherwise, right now we'll be talking about so many things, and you will have a lot of things into your brain, into your short-term memory. But what will remain out of this will be considered as your knowledge. So this is what remained out of him. So how to make sure that many other things remain with you is you actively engage with the material. And it's all right if you are making notes and if you are never reading them. It's all right. Perfect, and it's way better than the person who just saw something and never made notes. And that's what, there is a story of Ghazali. Ghazali probably will counter attack me here. So once what happened with Ghazali is Ghazali was writing notes of everything. So he used to write notes, and he did not use to retain the information. He just used to write notes, scribble notes here and there. And what happened once, there was a group of robbers, and they came into the village and they robbed them. And they took his all the books, his all the notes away. And then he said, "Oh my God! So my whole thing has been somehow shattered. I should look for these thieves. I should look for these robbers. I should go to the place." So somehow he contacted some people, and then they told him, "Okay, these are the people who usually rob, and you should go there." So then Ghazali went there. He told him, "कि एक काम करो, you keep everything. Just give me the notes that I have made. You give back them to me because this is my whole, मेरी मेहनत है 4 साल की 5 साल की, तो नहीं तो ये लॉस्ट हो जाएगा." तो चोर ने क्या किया, ही स्माइल्ड एट हिम, ही सेड कि वो भी कोई नॉलेज होता है, वो भी कोई इल्म होता है जो चुराने से चोरी होता है, जो चुराने से घूम जाए. तो गजाली सेड कि इट हिट हिम वेरी हार्ड. ही सेड कि ये तो बहुत खतरनाक चीज़ बोली उसने. तो व्हाट ही डिड इज ही यूज्ड टू राइट एंड इमीडिएटली उसको अंडरस्टैंड करके मेमोराइज एंड देन सेड कि अब ले जाओ, क्या ले जाना है इसमें से. दैट्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. नॉलेज इज व्हेन यू फॉरगेट एवरीथिंग व्हाट रिमेन्स इन यू. ओके, दैट्स व्हाट गजाली से, उसने वो लिखता था. He used to write a lot, and then he used to, for most of the things, he used to absorb the material so that he can replicate the things again. If it's taken by somebody else, वो फिर से replicate कर सकता है उसको. Yes, Mahmood, got your question answered?
Beautifully, thank you very much.
Yes, Muzaffar has a question. Yes, Muzaffar.
सर जैसे मैंने पहले ही बोला था कि मेरा जो, मैं अगर कोई लेक्चर देख रहा हूँ तो मैं लगभग सारे नोट्स मतलब कॉपी करता हूँ ऑलमोस्ट. अगर उसने उस लेक्चर में 10 एग्जांपल्स दिए होंगे तो मैं सारे 10 एग्जांपल्स लिखता हूँ. ठीक है, तो उस हिसाब से मुझे अगर कोई सब्जेक्ट होगा तो बहुत मतलब बड़ी बुक बन जाती, 300-400 पेज मान लो उस सब्जेक्ट के लिए. लेकिन फिर वही मतलब जितना ज़्यादा मैंने कंपाइल किया है फिर वही माइंड में आ जाता है, फिर इनको कौन रिवाइज करेगा, फिर वो ऐसे के ऐसे ही रहते हैं. मतलब
No, I'll tell you what to do about that also. देखो मैं क्या करता था, I had notes like huge chunks of notes, 300 pages. मेरे पास भी notes होकर 300 pages के. Now what you do is, when you start revising again, you say कि अब एक काम करता हूँ मैं, I am revising, I'll probably make shorter notes. You call them short notes. Okay, on purpose you do this. So here this is 300 pages, probably make 50 to 100 pages or even less than that. Okay, and these are the short notes for you. So here at the same time you again making notes, but you are revising basically. You are hacking your brain into saying this कि मैं अब पढ़ाई फिर से तो नहीं कर रहा, but what I'm doing, I'm just preparing short notes. Okay, let's suppose by short notes I'll just revise and I'll write it here. मैं यहाँ पे लिखूंगा and that these be my short notes. And even some people I have seen have super short notes. They have for each subject 1 to 2 pages. I am not at the home, otherwise I have shown you like the things that I had. I had these super big notes, some short notes, and I had these super short notes in which there are 2 pages. And because these are very important things for me. So if I have to revise, I'll start from here. जो 2-3 पेज मैंने लिखे होते थे, I'll start from here, I'll revise it, and then go back to short notes. Okay, and then 300 page, and then there is this book. मेरे पास book या जो भी material हुआ करता था. Okay, but it is better if you are making 300 notes, good, because you remember something. So next time when you are thinking of revising, you don't tell your brain I'll revise the whole thing. You tell your brain, okay, let's do one thing. I'll make short notes. Probably short notes are page 50, or maybe less than 50, whatever you feel. Okay, Muzaffar? Question answered?
Got it.
Arshan is
Muzaffar, what
asking a
about
question. Just wait a while because there are so many questions. I'll just read Arshan's question because he has been messaging.
Sure,
So can you talk a
sure.
little bit about how to read a book, like how to absorb better and making important stuff and all? Yes. I'll talk about that. Just give me a second. Not second, more than a second. Yes, Mohsin.
What about the mind maps जो बनाते हैं?
Yeah, we
Please
will
throw
we
some
will
light
show
on
them
that.
also. So show everything. So first I was with the flashcards.
Okay.
Okay, so I showed them the flashcards. So tell me who is getting benefits from this session? Raise your hands. Yes, actively engagement, actively involving, so you analyze, think. Yes, so now we learned what is called as active recall. So the definition of active recall is that when you're engaging with the material, you're not just taking information in. You are now trying to take information out of your brain. Okay, whatever you have, you are forcing your brain to reconstruct. So I was telling you what is the motive of education itself. So people, whatever they read, 90% or more than this gets lost somewhere. Many people will argue about this. I learned electric current, this and that in my plus 2, plus 1. I never use them. Education is not about usage. Okay, that's called utilitarianism. There is no utility logic. I'll read, I'll get utility. I'll probably use it somewhere. So what education? It will create some neural pathways. Okay, how I think. Why should you read a lot? Because everything will create a neural pathway for you. It trains your brain. Just giving an example. If you play cricket, so if you play cricket is basically if you see a bat and a ball is there, so you have movement, certain movements. You have to run, you have to move bat in a certain direction, and when you ball, you have to throw it in a certain way. So then there are other games which are also bad games like badminton. So if somebody learns cricket, it will be very easy for him to learn badminton if he knows cricket. Okay, and this has happened with me in real world. Okay, I was playing because I knew how to play cricket since my childhood, because that's how many people grow up, by playing cricket. And then I did not play badminton, I'll say, in that atmosphere, or maybe what they call professionally. So it took me hardly 10 to 15 days to become a player. There was a guy who was playing badminton since 2-3 months. Okay, and in the initial days I was losing terribly because I was learning something, but suddenly some things from the cricket they transferred, because the bat movements were similar, the movements were mostly similar. So after that he never won a game against me, because he has never played cricket in his childhood. The first game he played was badminton, because he was IIC nerds because they play very less. So when he played, and in the initial days he used to beat me like anything, and after that this cricket thing comes in. This is called as transfer learning. We'll probably also learn this in machine learning, what transfer learning is. So this is education. So when you learn about something, it's not about you learn a thing. What it does is, it is basically having those pathways. It is creating those neural pathways into your brain. So learning is a template. So when you feel something of that same sort, it becomes easy for you to learn that thing again. Okay. So can I move ahead with the other things? Any questions? Yes. So now we have seen this active recall, how to do the active recall. Now there is something called as spaced repetition. Okay, what is the spaced repetition? Now we have what's called as memory decay. So in our brains we can retain information, but this decay happens. So let's suppose if you learn something, let's suppose I have a graph like this. So if you learn something, you learned this is 100% information. Probably you learned some 80 to 90%. Today you are here. Okay, if you do not revise, what will happen? There will be exponential decay will happen. So next day it will go here, other day, next day it will go probably here, and it will go here, and very less information will be retained. So this is what is called as this is our forget curve. This is how we forget. We forget exponentially. So you retain some information. If you don't revise next week's next day, and you probably forget it after say some 3 weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. So now what scientists do it, they said, okay, can we do something so that we don't have this forgetting? Very easy answer was, can we space the repetition out? So we'll repeat the material, but we'll space it in a good way. So what can we do is, so let's suppose I read something today. So this was my today. Okay. So after 3 days, I'll revise information. Okay, after this I'll have 7 days gap. So that's why it's called spaced, because we're spacing out the things and then repeating. It's called spaced repetition. So okay, I read something here, then I again read it after 3 days. Again read it after, let's suppose, 7 days. And after that I again read it after 14 days or something. Okay, but initially you took 1 hour to read it, and in the second when you came back to it, you probably took some 20 minutes. Here you will take just 10 minutes. So here if you see it after a month or so, you'll take 5 minutes or something like that. So now this is your intervals. You can say let's suppose I did 3, 7, 14, some 30 days. This was my repetition cycle. Okay, when I learn something, after 3 days I'll come back to it, and once I revise that, I'll have after 7 days I'll come back to it. After 14 days I'll come back. After 30 days you'll come back, and somehow what you do is you are hacking this forgetting curve. So here you had retained some 90% information. Okay, here on the first day. So what happens? It was decaying, and because you again revise, you went back here. Again you were it was going now a little bit less steeper. Now after you revise, it again peaked like this. Okay, it's rather a strong peak. The peaks like this. Okay, and then you again, it was decaying, and again you peaked. Okay, so you are basically hacking this forgetting curve. You are not letting yourself forget the whole thing. So the first thing we said is active recall. You should actively recall things, and then you should do spaced repetition. Okay, if you are learning something, just mark it somewhere. Okay, this was date this. Okay, have a day or a note a date on that, and just write somewhere, okay, I'll read it after this many times. Okay, you read a topic, and probably after 3 days, and you have in your timetable, because previously we've also done that. So in probably last hour or something of the day, you said I'll have revisions. So revisions basically mean whatever you read, you'll have those spaced repetitions now. Okay, that's what this Anki comes again. So if you see that Anki, so we have seen this Anki again. I'll like to show that. So there you saw at the bottom there was something. So I'll just clear this. You saw here. So here in the bottom you have this again, hard, good, or easy. So this is basically spaced repetition. This is for the spaced repetition. This is for spaced repetition. So if you say again basically means show it to me again within a minute, because I forgot it. Hard, basically it was a bit hard, show it to me after 6 minutes, because I'm actually recalling. Otherwise, if it is good, show it to me after 10 minutes. Otherwise, if it was very easy for you, show it to me after 4 days, because it creates different buckets. So if you see, it has different buckets. So when you read these cards, it puts those cards into those buckets. So if you feel an easy card, it will probably show you after 4 days, after 10 days, and once you revise it more, it will increase this time. Okay, automatically, this all automatically happens. That's how you can again create this sort of thing, where you can space repetition your notes also. You space repetition your task. You can write a task, and then you write, I did it today, and today it was easy for me. When I came on the revision, please show it to me after certain amount of days. You can also keep a track of that. So this is what is called as spaced repetition. Everybody clear with this spaced repetition? Or any questions on this? So far what we have learned active recall. Active recall basically is questioning yourself. You make questions, and then when you come to revision, you actively recall those things. You are not being on the toss, just reread. Don't reread, don't highlight, make active recall. And then we said spaced repetition. Okay, these are two things that we saw so far. Any questions on these two things? You can raise your hand if you have no questions. Can I move? Yes, I think Fahad has a question. Yes, Fahad.
How do I interleave these spaced repetitions across multiple subjects?
Yeah, you'll have to keep a track. There are different softwares also. I told you Anki can be one of them, and there you'll have to look up the different softwares. So if you have subject 1, subject 2, subject 3, subject 4, so it becomes really easy. You just keep a bucket. You just keep bucket of like 4 buckets, or maybe you have just a copy with 4 pages. So you write on this after 3 days, let's suppose after, let's suppose 7 days, and then you write it after 14 days and after a month or something. So whatever you have read today, okay, and then drop it into 3 days, this, write it on the page where you have to write these things 3 days, after 3 days, and knowing your current date is, let's suppose today it is 17th August. So write it here 17th August and then put it here after 3 days. So what you do is, once you read it in the 3 days, because after 3 days, once it comes becomes 21, so you will read it and you will transfer this thing into the 7th bucket. You will say, now I'll write it here. Okay, I'm just giving you a mechanical way. So after the 7th day, because you write the dates over here, this is after 7 day. So after 7 day, I'll move it to here. I'll move it to here. You'll keep on moving these cards here and there. And basically these will be just topic names. You'll write topic names. Today you write something, you write that into 3 day bucket, that list which contains after 3 days. Okay, once you read that, you strike that off from 3 days and you transfer it to 7 days. Okay, that way you will have these 4 pages probably where you are just keeping the track of these things. Once that page gets over, you can just dump that page somewhere. You can bring new page. Am I clear with this, Fahad?
Yes, very clear.
So you
Thank you so
can
much.
do something like that. There are online softwares also. Any other question? Majid, you have your hand raised. Any questions?
No, sir, no, sir, not
Okay,
yet.
okay. Okay, so we learned about these 2 techniques so far. One is spaced repetition, and then we have this active recall. So as I said, spaced repetition, you can use this Anki which is algorithm based, or there are again SuperMemo apps. There are a lot of things. Okay, and the other thing that I'll say is that's called as Feynman technique. Feynman technique. So what is this Feynman technique basically? So if you are learning something, learn it a way that you are thinking, I'll have to explain it to somebody very easily. Let's suppose usually, so you are learning about something. At the back of your mind, have this thing in your head. I'll have to explain it to somebody who doesn't know this material. So how I can explain it to them? Okay, once you have that in the head, so what happens that time is you are now learning in a way so that what can I tell other person? Okay, I have my self-doubt. Okay, if he asks me this question, so you are having 2 conversations with yourself. Okay, usually what I'm doing when I'm making material for you, because that's now given for me, I have to teach you people. I'm thinking, okay, how to articulate it better, what to tell, because if I receive this question, what to tell. Sometimes I will not even understand a thing fully. So I'll say, oh, if I got this question, then oh, this means my thinking is flawed somewhere. I don't understand this thing as a whole. Okay, that's the thing. When you learn from a perspective that you are going to teach it to somebody. Okay, probably if you're not good at teaching, it's all right. You don't have to teach. But what I'm saying, you have that in the back of my mind. I'll have to explain it to somebody. So how to explain that time if he asks me this question? Okay, this is called as Feynman technique, because R.D. Feynman was a famous physicist. So he discovered it. He said when he was learning something, he had a duck. So after that, what he used to do is he used to explain the things. Okay, this thing happens this way and this thing happens that way. Oh, then he got self-doubt. Oh, my thinking is flawed here. I'm not properly understanding it. Then he used to go back. Okay, how to think the properly. And now in computer science also we have that duck programmer. So what usually you do when you code, you have that duck on your table. You explain him the code, or maybe it the code. You explain it the code, because there is a rubber duck. You might have seen on many programmer desks they have the rubber duck. So what they do is they explain. When they read the code, they explain. I have done here. There are people I have done it with them. There are people here, coordinators. Usually I know they have time. So what I do, I call them. I tell them, hey, I had this code. I have to explain it to you. Because and I know they're from different field. They're entirely from different field. I tell them, you just have to say ha ha na na. You just listen to me. So what I do is, so I'll just open the code. I'll share the screen with them. I'll go through the code. So I'll say this thing does this. Oh, I said something wrong. No, this has to be like this. And I'm just telling them do ha ha. Just tell me yes no. And I know you don't understand. But because I'm reiterating it to somebody else. So what it makes, I am teacher of myself at the same time. क्योंकि ये जो आवाज़ निकल रही है मेरे कानों में पड़ रही है. So it's good that once I do that, so I get more clarity on the things because I'm taking information out. Okay, recently I did it with somebody. So recently I was just sharing the screen and telling them, look, this is, and I know they're from different field. So I was saying, this is object detector, this is my RPN network, this is that. Okay, are you? Oh yes, they were just saying yes. And I have trained them कि यही बोलो, बस हाँ ना बोलो. Okay, usually I used to do it with my sisters also. So because they are now from computer science background, I told them कि I'll just read something to you. You just say हाँ ना because I'll get more clarity. That's what you should do. So you should learn as if you are teaching it to somebody, or as if you have to explain it to somebody at a later period. And this is called as Feynman technique. Okay? Is it clear? Now we'll come on a different thing that's called as mind maps, mind mapping. So what this mind maps does basically is you'll have to create a story. You'll have a central idea. Let's suppose you are having a central idea topic. You want to learn about functions, Python functions. This is your central idea. Okay, what you are doing is now you are creating a mind map. So you are creating a map because our brains, they're more trained about visual thinking, because we remember things visually more, because whole of the world is visual. So what you will do, you will create these visual maps. So you will write functions, and then you'll probably go here and then you'll write, oh, functions has this arguments, and then you'll have this args, and then probably explain it a bit here, write something over here, have these big charts. Probably if there is a concept which you want to explain like this, have these big charts, functions, and then write this is the arguments. Okay, so what is the meaning of, let's suppose, some other topic you will write over here. So you will give that topic a name. Say in functions you are writing about scope. Okay, and you explain the scope over here, and then you keep on making, and for here also arguments, what are these parameters arguments, what are keyword arguments, and you'll keep on making a map. So once you have that map clear within you, and you have somehow created that visual thinking for yourself, like after you look at that map for twice thrice, probably that thing will get imprinted on your brain. It becomes really easy, and these mind maps are really easy to make nowadays. Okay, there is a software Whimsical. Okay, probably I'll show you that also. Just give me a sec, I'll show you that. So I'll share the screen and you see it there. I hope you are able to see this. So here, if you see, this is the Whimsical. So I'll just log in with Google. So I have already my Google logged in. So here I probably might have created something. So let's suppose here I was creating this attention for the code. I wanted to explain it to somebody. So if you see this, so what I have done is, so you see it over here. See it over here. I wrote something like this: start, then call a function, and then it does this, then these call this. I made sort of these maps. And let's suppose when I was teaching you the first thing, machine learning, I also made that plan. So I said the central is artificial intelligence. If you see it over here, then the parts are like this mathematical foundation you should have. You should know machine learning. So in the mathematical foundation, you should know these sort of things, and the supervised, unsupervised. I made a whole map of this. And you see, the central idea is here. The artificial intelligence is in the middle. If you see it over here, so this is in the middle, and then I have kept, you need domain expertise, you need programming, Python programming. In Python, what you know, you need basic of this, and then you should know these libraries, and then you should have this mathematical foundation. In that, we'll learn about this. Then machine learning is subdivided into supervised. Supervised, we'll have this. Then unsupervised, we'll have clustering, we'll have dimension reduction. This is what we'll read about. Then we'll have reinforcement learning, we'll have deep learning. In deep learning, we'll have these sort of things. So this is some sort of a map, mind map. Okay, you should try to create these mind maps. The first thing is, it is really fun to make them. Okay, when you make them, you sort of have that like dopamine rush comes. You go, oh, I made a really good thing, and it looks beautiful also. The more you make it, the better you get it, and it takes hardly for this map. If you see it, it's way complex. It took me hardly 10 to 15 minutes to make, not more than that, because I knew the things. I was just writing them, and I was just creating a map of this. So these sort of mind maps you should create. Okay, so what we learned is just summarizing: active recall, and then we did spaced repetition, and then after that we said Feynman's technique. Okay, and then we said mind maps. Okay, and for all these things there are apps. For this I showed you the apps, and for this mind maps I also showed you the apps. So then there are some other techniques also. So after this mind mapping, what you should do is, there is something called as flow based note taking. Okay, in flow based, what you basically do is, so you capture as you listen to the lecture. Okay, you jot down these ideas and reflect how they naturally connect. Okay, so right now if you see, I am writing in a haphazard direction. Sometimes I'm going here, sometimes there, because that's a usual flow of conversation. So what you will do is, once you hear the lecture and you are jotting these things down and here and there, after that you'll have to think what is the natural flow. By that I mean, okay, first I should know this thing, after that I should know this thing, after that I should know this thing. So here again, if you see, you'll involve your brain actively. Okay, that's how you should also take notes sometimes. So you just hear the lecture, hear it in the first go without even writing anything, and in the second go, what you should do is, you should make notes, because now you know the flow of the information. Now you at least know that outline. Okay, first this will be said, after that this will be said, after this will be said. So as you listen to the lecture or read, so you have to just write these ideas first, and then see how these ideas connect, and then make the notes in a proper way, so that you focus on understanding instead of recording everything. Okay, usually, as Muzaffar said, that he has tendency to write everything. So I'm also in favor you should write everything if you feel, but a good way will be just watch a lecture and just jot down the ideas first. Okay, what are the ideas that they are discussing, high level ideas, and then give them a flow and see, okay, what is the natural flow, I can sort of plug them together. First he talked about this, then he talked about this, he said something. So here I'll go back somewhere, I'll go, like, I'll say something in advance. Okay, we're going to tell about this, but now once you got these ideas, after that what will happen is, so you'll have to give them a flow. So once you get in the flow, and then you can fill in those details. There are a lot of these techniques, lot of, again, there are a lot of softwares where you can do this. Okay, and then what you do is, this is natural flow, creating natural flow from the notes. Then one more important technique is analogies and patterns. Analogies and patterns. And most of these things I have done on myself. It's not that I'm just saying you and probably it's written somewhere. No, I think around 99% of techniques I use myself, and that's why I'm speaking from the experience. Okay, and what is this analogy? So usually what you do is you create a story, and because our brain, when it stores some information, it's good if you have some information, you build on top of that. Not creating new information, you just build on top of that. So the way I learned computer science, like this computer network in my undergrad, was through these analogies. Because if you know, there is the TCP/IP layer, there are these different layers, physical layer, network layer, this layer, that layer, and it has functionalities, and you have to somehow remember that and what are the functionalities of different layers. So what I used to do is, I create an analogy from my home. I said, when I go out of the home, so there I see park. On the top of park, then we see these electric lines coming. That's my physical layer. Okay, I start with the physical layer, and physical layer has this because there's electric wires are there. Then when I go outside, I see something. So I created a whole story of the subject. I created a whole story out there, and I knew when I walk inside the room, this room is, let's suppose, UDP. This is my this protocol. This is my this, because this is what happens in that room. So usually I say, oh, this is my study room. My study room is probably that application end. Okay, where I have these protocol, everything. So I sort of assigned everything to a room, and once every time when I was entering the room, I was remembering that thing. Oh, I have associated this thing with that. So it is better to create analogies. Okay, maybe with your house, maybe you visited some place, because some things you know really well. You know your hostels really well, you know your houses really well, you know some maps really well. So it is better to create analogies. Just come up with a story, some random story, and maybe you don't need to tell it to somebody, but it's just for you. You are having that story with you, and then you are making the analogies, and it will make you very easy for you to understand the things. Why? Because, as I said, you already have some base in the brain. What you are doing is you are creating information on top of that. You are basically creating more cues. वो जो क्यू और बन रहे हैं तुम्हारे पास, it is making your information stronger, and it is offloading a majority of the thing from the brain, because now you are not making new neural connections. You probably will be making some, but most of the time you are building on the previous material that you already know very good. So it is better you create these things. Sometimes if you want to remember the name, let's suppose if you have to remember a new name, you somehow you create an analogy. Let's suppose many of the times you might have done this. Okay, if it is a hard name, so what you do is, so it was really hard for me to remember, this is cuticle. So this nail, the tip of it is called cuticle. So I was thinking how to remember it. Oh, I'll remember the word cute. It looks somewhat cute. Okay, and then I'll call it cuticle. So you see, I create analogies. Okay, and you might have also done this similar thing. So if you have to remember something, if you have to understand something better, so you create analogies. Oh, maybe this thing looks like this. Okay, maybe electricity looks like water flowing from here. Okay, and people give analogies to make you understand better, because analogies are the things that you probably understand better, and then you are building on top of that. So you should use and then find these patterns also. So while creating analogies, you will find the patterns also. Okay, this somehow matches with this. So if you see human body is like a machine, as machines, like you understand, let's say machines way better. Then you are thinking, oh, our let's say the food we eat is like the petrol. Other things, you are seeing those patterns. Okay, and this is what you should create analogy. You should come up with the stories, and then you should also try to find the patterns which at least fit in those analogies. And if you have any questions, do ask me here, because I feel now this is getting just one-way communication. You're probably sleeping, because I see from 18, 20 people slowly we are getting less people. Yes, Asif.
I had a question. How frequent should we revise the notes, and how should we allot a different time to revising the notes? Like this
Yes,
is
yes. In the planning
something.
video, if you saw, So keep the end time for revise. So I said when you sleep, when you're about to sleep. So probably that 1 hour it's good for the revision, because before you sleep, make sure that you are revising that time. Because as you said, sleep also has a lot of role to, because whatever you did in the day, it will transfer that information into long term. So when you sleep, so it is better you revise the things. Okay, that time. Usually it worked for me also, because sleep has a great role in permanent retention, how you permanently retain into the memory. So let's suppose if you sleep around 11, okay, maybe you have that range of 11 to 11:30 you do sleep. So what you should do is, after 9, don't learn any new material. It is better these 2 hours, 9 to 11 or maybe 9:30 to 11, have this thing for these revisions. And as I said, you should have spaced out revisions. So 3, 5, or maybe 3, 7, 14 or 30. These are 4 pages that you will maintain. Okay, this is the thing, because you are students and you have to do it. Okay, and because your full-time job is to study, your full-time job is to learn. Okay, and you should have all these mechanisms. And you know how much will they benefit once you come into the corporate world, once you come into doing some things, because you have these things in place. Even right now I use these things. I have different softwares. If I have to do something, I'll just put it there. Okay, I'll see, okay, oh, what are the things that I have to do. Right now on my phone there are so many software, on my laptop there are so many softwares, because now I have practiced these software in my undergrad. It is helping me a lot. Okay, that's what here right now you should do this. Okay, have 1 hour, probably 1.5 hours at the end of the day where you revise things, because here you will be probably drained, fully drained, and you don't want to take up new information. It's better to revise here. Okay, Asif?
Yes.
Any other questions? Mohsin, you should ask more questions.
I don't think there's left anything.
So, one more important thing I said in the previous session also, interleaved practice. Okay, interleaved practice. You should also do this. So interleaved practice basically involving mixing different subjects and topics, so that you don't get bored. Okay, so focus on just one topic in one session, and after you just let's suppose have 5 minute break and come up with do something else, because you are now intermixing. That's sort of taking that load away from your brain, because you're not getting bored then. So it improves long term retention also. As I said, that our brain gets really bored if it is fed the same information always. So it is better. That's why this Instagram, YouTube shorts, they're very addictive, because they change the topics very quickly. Okay, and our brain is getting, every time it's getting new dopamine rush. So it is better you do that also. Let's suppose you have that, you're using that Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of study, 5 minutes rest, 25 minutes of study, 5 minutes rest, 25 minutes of study, and then you can take 15 minutes rest. So in this way, 30, 30, and probably this is more than 30, this is around 40 minutes. So this is 30 plus 30 plus 40. So this is 1.1 hour and 40 minutes. Okay, so this is how you can do it. So here probably read about one subject, okay, and maybe interleave, or maybe you can continue the subject. And after this, after you feel having 2 sessions, oh, I'll get bored probably, let's leave this. Let's change the other side, let's change the other topic also. So this is what called as interleaved practice. Okay, you should keep on interleaving the things, otherwise what will happen is it will become boring and then you will just leave it. Okay, and then there are 2 more things, learning things. So one is called as conceptual learning, and one is called as procedural learning. So what is conceptual learning? There is so much to say. So conceptual learning is the learning where you need to learn about the concepts. Okay, let's suppose you want to understand theory of relativity. So it's a concept based thing. You want to learn, let's suppose, about what basically functions are. So more or less we are doing this conceptual learning. So in our computer science, so mostly we do this. And but there is also that procedural learning. What is this procedural learning? People are taught these mechanical methods. Let's suppose quadratic formula is there. So you are telling, okay, you have this formula, you take these values, put it in the formula, you'll get an answer. Okay, there's a procedure. Okay, usually doctors do this procedure. You do this first, wear the gloves, then do this, then do this, then do this, and then you are done with this. Okay, and conceptual learning is where you have to basically involve in the material, and then you have to understand many things. It may require some parts of memory, but it is way more related to this logic. So you have to have your logical thinking in place. So here, so procedural learning is somewhat easy to do. So here, if you repeat it multiple times, so probably you will see the procedure. But for conceptual learning, you will have to think. Okay, this is hard part of learn. This is hard. But sometimes you'll have to procedure learn also, because sometimes you understand how the integration really well, but then you have a mechanical method to perform that. Okay, and every time you should not go back to basics. Let's suppose if I tell you differentiation of d by dx of x to the power n is n x n minus 1. So this is the formulation. There is a mechanical method now, but this formula comes from a concept. So the concept is, let's suppose f of x minus h, something like this, minus f of x divided by h or something. So if this h tends to something, so this is the formula. So I can come up with this formula, and then I can go to this bare bone basic. This is a concept, and I can derive this formula. But every time you don't need to derive it. Sometimes you will use this procedural thing. Okay, so this will get better once you practice more. So but in here you'll have to really invest your time and really have patience to understand these. So conceptual learning is a bit harder. Procedural learning is easy, because if you practice it 2 3 4 times, it will get somehow stuck with your brain. Okay, and it's mostly easy then. But conceptual learning, you'll have to give more the time to it, and you'll have to think more, and you'll have to analyze more, and you'll have to have active discussions, active engagements. Okay, then you sometimes have to balance both. Sometimes you also want to learn a concept and then also have a procedure for it, and then have a mechanical method for it. I am not straight away rejecting the mechanical methods. Now taking the question of Arshan. So Arshan's question was how to read a book. How to read a book. There is a good book, I think, by John Adler. The book's title is How to Read. Okay, by John Adler. There's a great book by this. So I'll just probably take some points from that, whatever I could remember, and whatever I have seen in my lab that worked. Okay, so before this, if you have any questions about whatever we discussed so far about this conceptual learning, procedural learning, what are the concepts we said, interleaving, and maybe analogies, patterns, active recall, space repression, Feynman technique, mind maps, to have natural flow of the ideas. Any questions if you have, shoot them away. We're left with 9 people. We are having the decay. Asif, you have a question? Yes.
For example, when we are doing any task that doesn't require to listen to something, or that doesn't require much of the brain thing, we usually use headphones or listen to something in background. Is that a good way to study or not?
Sometimes it does help in certain situations, because if you are learning, as I said, set up the environment. If your environment is like that where you have a lot of external stimulus, so a lot of external stimulus, it's better to put your headphones on to noise cancel, probably to have those beats. There are those which are halal music probably, and then they have certain frequencies which probably blocks the other things that in the atmosphere. But the better way would be go and have a neat atmosphere where there is very less distraction. But if you are forced anyway, because you cannot have every duck cannot be on the same line, so it is better sometimes you can put the headphones on. But because I have seen people who told me it worked for them when they just plugged their ears and they were listening to something. I was meeting with a guy. I shouldn't name his. I should not give the name though. So what happened is he was a PhD student, and he had published no papers till his, I think, 3rd year or something. So because he always had the self doubt, what should I do, what will I do. When he started writing something, he had the doubt, and then he stopped writing. So he told me he used to plug in headphones and then listen to music, and then what I came and he used to write without even thinking much. He was saying, okay, dekha jayega, we'll see it, I'll still write. And then I think in 1 month or so, in less than a month, he got his 4 papers accepted. So that is at least one case study where it helped him, because probably he was getting a lot of distractions, not from outside but from internal also, because you have internal distractions also. Sometimes your brain gives you a lot of stimulus. What will you do about this, what will you do about that? You have to calm down yourself. So how to calm it down? इसको किसी काम में लगाओ, listen to music, don't worry, and probably listen to nasheeds, probably listen to something. I usually do that when I work. So if a lot of people are around me in the office, and because they are talking here and there, they're having discussions, what I do is I'll put my the headphone on, and then there are these 60 hertz, some beats or something. So that's the call is white noise. That's that white noise. It's like the shing, something like that happens in the head. Okay, I focus with that. Okay, because otherwise I have to attend to that distractions. What are they speaking about? My brain will go there. So it is better to put that thing on. Okay, Asif?
Yes, thank you.
Now we'll handle the last question for the day. How to read a book. I won't be doing justice with the answer. But anyways, I'll be giving you some things which probably will benefit in the long run. Okay. So Arshan is here. Yes, he is here. So how to read a book. So usually they say that book should be read at least thrice. So a good book should be read thrice, 3 times. So what you should do is, in the first go, you understand the structure of the book. You understand the structure. So what I mean by structure? So you are just basically glossing over the book. It's not necessary that you will read everything in the book. So the first thing is, when you have a book in the hand, just flip through the pages. And the first thing is see the content. What are the contents in that? Okay, there is that content page. Okay, and nowadays some good books I have seen. Now most of these books have these summaries. Okay, they write in this chapter we have discussed this, in this chapter we have discussed it. Thoroughly read that. Okay, go with the contents page first. Okay, and then see, okay, this is the content discussed in the book, and then go with that page where they have written how is the book organized. They usually write it the organization of the book. So they'll write in chapter 1 we have discussed this, maybe there'll be a paragraph, and then there'll be this. So in this you'll get to know the structure of the book. So what I'm saying is read the content page and read that organization page. How is this book organized? Okay, and then also probably read about the author, because that will get you excited. Let's suppose when you talk to me, if I teach you something else now, because you know my personality now to some extent, you will probably be more lean towards, okay, yeah, we know that guy, probably we'll listen to him, we'll learn from him. Okay, so it is better to get to know the author. Okay, when you learn a book, have some personal connection with the author. Okay, because there is that page, forward page, where they write about the authors. Okay, probably reviews you should not read nowadays. They put reviews in the book also. It's not good to read this. It's better to read contents for what is in the book. And second thing is read that organization, how is book organized. And the third thing is author, what have they written about the author, so that you get a notion. That's the thing that I'm reading about. So he's a personality, he's a person. Okay, and basically I'm sort of having a discussion with that guy, and then go through the book, gloss it over, just flip the page. If it is a long book, probably thousands of pages, you cannot flip whole the page. But usually, if you see books, average size will be some 200-300 pages. You can flip them over. So just flip them couple of times and just read through some lines and just flip again a page, read some paragraphs, so that you get some notion what is he speaking about. So then you will understand the structure. And the second time when you are doing with this gloss study, when you do this, now you at least know what's the structure. Okay, you have that map got created into your head. Okay, this is how book is structured. Okay, and this is what author is about to say, and there are different things that you read about it. You just read it. It's like you see it, book reading, like visiting a city. Okay, you should not visit, you should first do that high level view, just drone vision, just fly a drone over it. If you have seen a fly a drone over that city, and then see, oh, there is some important part, this is there, oh, there is a garden also, oh, there is that river also. So that's what book is like. So see book like a city. Okay, some cities are beautiful, okay, and some cities are really horrible. Okay, that's how these books are even. So once you gloss over that, you are basically having the high level vision. Okay, there are different things discussed in the book, so you understood the structure. And after that, now you become a sailor, you become like a traveler. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll now do one thing. I'll now study these things in detail, because I know the structure now. Let's suppose when I was new to Bangalore, what should I have done? I should have a drone view vision. Okay, I open some maps. Oh, this is this place. So there, this is South Bangalore, North Bangalore. This is there. This is there. I got the structure. Okay, now I'll link in campus. So tomorrow I'll go from my campus to, probably, let's suppose, say Marathalli, say Whitefield, or somewhere else. Okay, I'll just make a plan, and then I'll sort of start exploring. That's the same thing. First thing, gloss over. Now you know the city, you know the book. And the second moment, what you will do is you will try to, now today I'll read this chapter, I'll see what the author says, and you keep on progressing in the second. And probably you will not understand full material. You'll be able to understand 50-60%. It's all right. Okay, once you do that, and then you have to do a third reading, because now you know what this author is saying. Okay, and here after the third reading, you'll own the book. By owning, I mean now you will have internalized these concepts, because the first one was just looking at the book, know the structure. The second reading was to understand what author said. Okay, when you do the third reading, basically you are having a rebuttal discussion with author. Hey, look, I feel this is wrong, you are here, because I read it, I don't agree with you, or I do agree with you. Okay, and sometimes you'll feel, oh, nice, he said in a very beautiful way. You're having a discussion, and after that third reading, you own the book. Once you do these three readings, sometimes you'll keep on feeling, I want to read it again and again. I want to read the book, because it gives me so much of content, so much of things that I haven't learned previously. Okay, so have this structure in the book. Whenever you read something, gloss it over. Okay, the first thing is I said this, do the prior thing, read the contents, read that organization page, and then read about the author, so that you get the know, and then start glossing it over. Probably if it's a big book, it'll take you 5-6 days to gloss it over. And after that, have a thorough reading of that. By thorough, I mean now you should sort of feel that, okay, I'll understand the material, and you will probably understand 50-60% of the material. And after that, third reading should be very thorough. So where you are basically disagreeing with the author, or agreeing with the author, where you are putting your own thoughts in that. Okay, Arshan, is that clear? Yes. Do you have any questions, or I bored you till death? Yes.
सर एक क्वेश्चन रह गया था वो कोड की नोट मेकिंग
Yes,
how
yes,
to
yes.
do
I
so.
would I would show you an app. So there is an app called Notion. Okay, there is the app Notion. Usually people make notes in that. I also used to make notes. Notion is sometimes called a second brain. Okay, it's called a second brain. So what you should do is, if you are learning to code, so better thing is have a computer and you are writing something and comment that thing. Comment a lot, write a lot of comments. Okay, write a lot, write your thinking. Let's suppose you are writing something like the definition, add. Okay, and then you are writing a comma b, something like. Then you are writing body of the function. So what you should do is you can write over here, comment hash. This function does this, and then at each line you should write these things comments. How can you do it? You can use either like environments, whatever you have these editors, okay, and you can do it in there and save the files, or you can use these softwares like Notion. So where you can write the notes and parallelly you can write the code for them also. Let me show you the Notion also. I'll show you the Notion. This is called a second brain. Notion has so many functionalities. So I usually use Notion almost every day. So I'll show you what Notion looks like. Yes. So you're able to see this. This is Notion. This is a Notion software. So here you'll be able to create pages. So let's suppose I'll create a new page. So I'll create a new page in this private space. So here you saw this new page. Now I'll write it new. Okay, if I'm writing something, I'll write here the content. If I have to write the code, I'll write this and then I'll press code. And now I'll write code. Definition, function, a comma b, and once I am done, I'll come out and again explain. If I now need image, I'll just write image. So I'll just add image over here. Are you able to see the screen? I hope you are able to see it.
Yes, yes.
So this Notion is
Yes,
called
sir.
second brain. You
Actually,
can, yes. So if you see, we were doing.
actually, I have used this Notion.
Okay, nice that you have used it.
Not, but not for the code.
I'm using it for most of my planning. Let's suppose we are doing this LLM in architecture. How can you use these large language models? So we were first having these papers. Okay, I collected some papers. I said, okay, these are the papers that I should read. I created a table-like structure. I said, okay, this is in progress, this is in progress, this is in progress. And I was also writing paper summaries. If you see here, I write paper summaries. So just let me open this. Oh, this is not started. These are the papers. It will open a paper here. But I think there should be summary also, but I'm unable to click on this. Because this is some other version. So here what I have done is when I open, here is the open page. If you see open, so now if you see that I have written some summaries. If you see open over here, I have written summaries over here. Okay, these are the paper. This is one of the paper. This is papers. So now if I see what are the important data sets that I have. So these are the important data sets. So I have created those. This 3D models. These are from Princeton. 3D scenes and this and that. And then probably important some additional material if I want to read some additional material. So these are the slides. And so what is the flow of construction? Usually we're thinking, okay, how does these construction people work? So they site select, conceptual view, and everything we wrote here. And there are a lot of things, and the courses are related. If I have to do some courses, I was thinking, okay, what courses should I do? If you see, I have figured out Stanford courses, some UCL, Stanford, MIT, Princeton, deep geometric learning. So this should be the material that I should read so that I can do this. So I'm clubbing everything on this project. Okay. So even let's suppose even I have people whom I collaborate with. So let's suppose I collaborate with Sanmit. So Sanmit's Notion is here. So he writes everything here. See how much he has written. So and books for religion, we have kept some books for religion, and a lot of things have been kept here. And then I have a guy who is a PhD student. He's going to be a professor. So here he is. We were working on this 3D printing. Okay, and then we have made a project onto this. So we were discussing ideas. So I gave a lot of stuff to and he also told me what should we do. And this is my personal page. I have a reading list. What should I read? There's some books which I should read. I had a reading list made for me. Okay, and then this was my project when I was doing my masters. Okay, what's my weekly progress? How am I progressing? Okay, these things I do, and I also used to probably I have deleted many of the notes from here. Here, if you see, we have written what these functions are because we are writing a book. So here we write that thing. So this thing you can use it like heavily. Notion is one of the softwares that has helped me a lot. Okay, so you should also use it like when you're making notes, you should put code. But if you are not comfortable using it, it is better use that whatever ID environment you have. Whenever you have some example, it's good to have hands-on. Do not write these notes on the copy. So it's better. What you can do is, so you can you are making notes like this on your copy. Say you are writing something about programming. Okay, and once that program comes, just name it something. So you'll do one thing. You'll say test 1.py, and you will store it in a folder in your computer. Okay, don't write the code on the notebook, please. I have seen people doing this terrible mistake, writing these codes on this notebook. So it is better, so you just refer it here. So you are saying this is a program which explains how you write something about it, and then you have a folder in your computer, you have a folder in your PC of that name, and you will say test.this, and that is the folder. If you want to look at that code, just go there. Okay, and if you are not using Notion, this is for the people who are using notebooks, or maybe pen tablets, or maybe some other means by which they are making physical notes, and they want these programs. So it's better to just name the program and have that folder in your PC. Okay, but then when you revise it, you will have your PC open, obviously, and then you will have your notes in front of you. You are reading about the program, and then you are clicking on that file. That file will be these files will be stored in some folder. Any questions, Muzaffar?
Yeah, sir, got it. Actually, my second question was, do I need to write the code on the notebook?
No, 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 no.
But you
Please.
already answered it.
Yes, don't write on
Thank
note.
you.
It's better. It will be easy to write on the PC.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes, yes, yes. Any other questions? Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll stop the recording, and then yes, yes, yes. Okay. Do you have any other questions, or any other question, maybe related, unrelated, doesn't matter, or should I stop recording?
Sir, I have a
Yes.
question, but it's not related to this
Okay,
session.
okay. I'll stop the recording
I
here.
had to
Yes, yes, I'll stop the
uh,
recording, and then we can ask.